I guess I got to read some of these faction focuses at some point. People keep asking me
all 17 of them so far.
Jesus, have there been that many?
There's more to go. I think there's some left.
There's a lot of factions, like 25.
There's a
factions
lot of factions. I forget how many factions there are in this game.
Hey guys, welcome to another Lords of War Games and Hobbies video. I'm Chris. This is Jay, and we do these videos a couple times a week, bringing you up some information about the hobby industry, the games that we're interested in, the games sometimes you're interested in, maybe sometimes. And today we want to just
we're not we're just not a hate privateer press channel?
Well, apparently we were very bad faith with our discussions last week, so we're switching our gears a little bit. Well, people are also like, are you guys a War Machine channel now?
Yes, we just did. Sorry.
So we're going to try to...
We don't even sell it.
Yeah.
That's what makes this so difficult.
That's what makes this so hard. You don't even really work here.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about... we're just going to do a little really generic sort of catch-up video on Age of Sigmar and all the previews we've been seeing. And then there'll be another video following this, just giving some of our thoughts and takes on how we think it's like shaping so far, just based on what we can see. And so we're not going to go like super into detail on each faction, because obviously there's some guys out there that do that already and do a pretty good job of it.
You can also read it yourself.
And also there's
Warhammer community.
There's that. So like, we're not going to be too much just reading.
I already know the comments are going to be like, you got this wrong. I cross-referenced.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why you come here, to get the right information wrong.
So I guess this is just to maybe contrast and compare with like what was the history of some of these factions and what's changing or not changing.
It's also, I'll point out, it is kind of hard. This is why like I tend to not read a ton of the faction focused, like when they're doing this sort of stuff, and the new people are always like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I'm like, I'll be honest, I don't read a lot of it, because it's such a tiny little view of like what you're actually going to get. Like some of them, you're like, they give you like a couple of the characters and like that's it, and you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to make feel about
judgment
this
on the whole arm.
So sometimes for me, I'm just like, I'll just wait, and when it comes out, I'll
we'll have even our excited friends like, oh, this army's busted, and you're like, we know two things about it. We don't know any of the other
3 pieces out of 100, but okay, that's interesting.
So I'll start with today's, which was Hedonites. That's an army I play or have collected. I'm still continuing to like fiddle with they've had historically some sort of what we call it, depravity or temptation, or some sort of like gimmick where they generate dice to add. Or
it was depravity, and then it was depravity and temptation.
And that's right. So we just got to temptation now. As far as I saw, no depravity dice. But definitely cleaned up. So it's a very simple thing. You basically just when you pick units, your own units, you also give your opponent free dice that they're basically like Eldar Fate dice or Tzeentch Destiny dice, or basically they leave to submit, make 6s in certain rolls, miracle dice, etc. But the flip side is your units get to do they get extra hits, they get critical hit or whatever it is. So when they roll 6s, they do extra hits, and then you can stack and buff that. The other thing I saw that was good is they made Shalaxi, which is like the alternate Greater Demon. It's got a page of rules, and it sounds really good. There's just lots of buffs, and the thing attacks really well, does tons of damage. And I was like, well, it's never done that before. It's historically been a Greater Demon with 1 attack. So when I saw that it had 5, I was like, okay, well, we're getting somewhere. Okay. Anyway, so. But that's really it. They didn't really give us much else, so I'm going to assume they're still fast and whatever. So
they're gonna, I'm sure they'll have all the hallmarks of.
The other thing they did is they made the Fane, the terrain they bring, also much more useful. It's just like you want to place it and just buff units with it.
Part of me was hoping they just ditch the terrain thing, but. They've made it already.
I would have been okay with that too. Yeah,
they've already made it.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving on, sir.
I don't know if you read this one much. I read it a bit. The Lumineth one.
Yeah, it's really cool. Actually, I like how they figured out. This seems to be across the board with like the way that they're doing factions now. LRL is a good example. Like, maybe it's not a good example of how they're doing it. But so for a lot of them, you just kind of pick something that's kind of like your army bonus.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. LRL have that still, but their main mechanic, which was before based on sort of like a convoluted, you had these like little tokens.
You had Aether Quartz, which every unit came with.
Which you're just like, man, I'm tracking tokens. And so now it's just really simple. You almost have like these like interesting like stances that are built around like the elementals. So like earth, wind, I don't know, not fire, but like attack.
There's like water,
And you kind of and basically like you choose. As the turn goes, you can like not choose and then eventually choose when it becomes relevant, and you get to pick one a turn essentially. So your army kind of like shifts its fighting ability into what you need for that particular part in the battlefield, which I think is really cool. And then the faction specific stuff seems like it's just going to give you one extra choice essentially. Which is a really neat way to do it. So I think for Lumineth players, that's going to be really empowering for building armies.
Yeah, and actually, I completely forgot to check, but because they showed the spearmen. Are they still wizards? I don't think so.
I think they may have taken that away. Yeah,
that's a good thing. That's another thing. Which, good or not, it's you're going to see a recurring theme here. It's something less to track. But overall, the army felt, just from what we saw, like very combined arms and can pivot to what it needs. And I don't know, I liked it. I was actually a little excited for once.
It's cool. They both have managed to simplify and specialize in a really interesting way with keywords. I think it's really cool. So like the Spearman is a great example of that. They kind of... So Shining Company is just now a thing that like one of those abilities you can do basically for your whole army.
Fight with 2 units in a
No, that Shining Company is I think you're -1 to hit. Or whatever.
Sorry, you're right.
The 2 fighting things is I think what you get all the time.
Yes.
Yeah. But so they lost that, but they have like anti-cavalry.
Yes.
Which is cool. And then they have this mechanic where like if they get charged, they can make you they can get strike first, which is really neat because they have pikes. I'm like, oh, that's fine. They're pikemen. Which is really cool.
Yeah, it is good.
So they have a roll, which is I like when things have rolls.
Yeah. The next one I have on the list is Daughters of Kane, and I just wrote same as usual.
Yeah, I kind of I don't know, like a couple of our friends all play it right now. I play it too, and so they kind of just like moved some things like some of the power around. It seems like so some of the feel bad stuff I think everyone would agree was the mechanic where Morathi could activate a unit to fight or shoot twice in a turn. It leads to like things that are kind of degenerate, right? It leads to people taking 15 bow snakes and just double tapping every turn, which can be pretty rough, right? Or it leads to Morathi fighting twice, which is like obnoxious. And then you like, how do you balance? And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm trying to balance these war scrolls with the thought in my mind that like these things can all do things twice.
Yes.
Which makes it really difficult to like write these rules. So so they strip that out, which I think obviously hurts the army, but at the same time you're like, okay, now we can actually just make the things good. So
I think also you got again a reminder to everyone because it is like a codex or battle tome wipe or whatever. The overall power level of everything that you're used to is going to go down because they kind of scorch the earth and then they start over. So everything starts kind of bland in the beginning of this type of edition. And then it's slowly like incrementally they add a little bit here and there. So we'll discuss that more in the other.
So Morathi's still super strong. Like she still does her thing where she can't be killed, which is awesome. I think it's really thematic. I would be sad that if they took that away. It's just a unique thing in the game.
She has a swap places thing. I don't know if that's
which is cool. It's a neat trick, and you can pull it off. And they've given a little wiggle room in the rules where basically as long as the big one can be placed where the base is lipping the token. You can move it around, so it'll be easy if you charge or get charged to swap with the small one and position her fighting something, and that's going to be really cool. But she's 8. She's still got her 8 heart render attacks, and it doesn't degrade now.
Oh yeah.
So you're getting 8 all game.
Very strong.
She's going to be smashing.
Yeah.
And they took away the double fight thing, but she's got instead like a +1 attack bubble thing that she does if something dies. So
she may still roll around with a retinue of spear snakes or whatever.
And then like a couple little buffs, like the winged harpy girl's got an extra wound, which I think is nice because they were like super delicate before. They didn't show too much else.
Next up, I've got OBR. Kind of again this theme you'll see continuing. Getting rid of tracking all these like discipline points, and it's just like 2 things you pick every I think it's every phase or something.
So every phase you can pick one thing between two options.
Right. Yeah. So there's small buffs, cool. Extra move, extra hit, extra whatever.
Well done for them. It's very thematic. Like you have to basically pick a hero, and he affects a bubble. So like you're kind of picking on the battlefield where you need that ability, and then it bubbles out to the units around him. So I think it's pretty cool.
And one of the units that we noticed right away that was like very good are the Stalkers. They are the ultimate utility unit. Rarely do you see a stock infantry or heavy infantry unit that just comes with 4 options.
Swiss Army knife.
A Swiss Army knife.
It's cool.
Includes things like making your opponents contesting 0. Basically, they count as nothing on an objective, which is bonkers. Everything from that to your usual plus to hit, whatever, or minus to hit, and extra to
They have ignore ward saves.
And then they have ignore ward save, which is like, okay.
So yeah, I like it better because like they always kind of
they do have 4 arms.
They always kind of design them that way. Like they always had like a stance thing. But the problem was when they used to write the rules for them, it was all like choices about like increasing damage, increasing rend, increasing to hit. And the problem with that is there's just usually like always a best one. Right. Whereas these ones are all kind of not aligned in the same way. Like these kind of play in different ways in the game, and I think that makes them actually utility. Which is cool.
Yeah.
But just a couple more notes about the army. Like it seems like they're still going to be tough. They're still going to be elite.
Oh yeah.
There seems to be a lot of ways to get ward saves, and they're going to have a lot of high armor saves and stuff. So they're going to be like pretty hard to get rid of still.
Yeah.
They didn't really mention healing in the article. So I don't know if they're getting rid of some of that. Yeah, exactly, right? So we'll see.
And bear in mind, this has nothing to do with the Spearhead game mode. That has its own War Scrolls. This is just kind of the standard War Scrolls. Sons of Behemat, I saw a lot of the same, big killy guys. They have rampage abilities that you pick, and it's just damage. I
think they'll benefit. They'll benefit a lot from the damage curve dropping in the game, right?
Yeah. I did see a lot of hits on 4s though, which is I think something else that's a hallmark of this edition is they said this in a previous article. They basically like took the factions and put them into 4 buckets or 3 buckets if they were like a human, an orc or an elf or a chaos.
Or there's like almost like superhuman.
Stormcast so chaos. Basically if you're an elf you hit on 3s but you win on 4s, and then if you're an orc you hit on 4s but you win on 3s, and if you're a human you hit and win on 4s because you just suck or whatever, and so forth, right? So I think I saw a lot of like hits on 4s but wounds on 2s, and
that's stuff. The kind of monster category, like trolls, Croxagores.
If you do roll the big, happen to hit 4 times, you're gonna do tons of damage,
so it'll be a bit swingy in that regard.
I did see their other little thing. They had access to a whole pile of shiny things or artifacts, which I didn't see for the other factions, which is kind of cool.
They haven't showed off much artifacts in the
but they did for these guys.
They are apparently going to have artifacts.
So anyway, I didn't go drill down too deep because it all sounded kind of. There's not, to be honest, there's not a lot of creativity you can do with Mega Gargants because it's just giant guys. That, they're meant to be fun, simple Hulk smash. Okay. For Maggotkin, I just wrote disease. Which is kind of right on point and not so what does that mean? Actually, I guess I should elaborate. Historically speaking, Nurgle always has some sort of gimmick where the longer they're in contact with you, the more free damage they do. Yeah. And that continues. I did also recall the Great Unclean one is also amazing.
He's a house, man. He's a house. I mean, he's always kind of been the quarterback of the army, and they definitely have continued with that tradition.
Vomiting on you.
So the army's given out this disease keyword, essentially. And the cool thing about the way this like condition works now, and it seems like all conditions are going to kind of work like this, the negative ones, is like they just stay with you. Mm-hmm. The only way you can kind of get rid of them is if you have an ability to heal.
Right.
And then if you heal, you just get rid of the condition, but you don't heal. So you're just taking damage, like D3 mortals every turn, and every like player turn you're taking this damage. It's like boom, 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 boom. Yeah. And then it seems like the typical Nurgle thing, like they've actually leaned a little even heavier into like, all the demons are doing sixes critical mortals effect. Stuff like that. So the army's going to do a ton of mortals again.
That's
and be really
back to second-hand
and be really tough still because the blight, you got your Blight Kings with a 3+, 5+.
Oh my god!
And just good luck, right? So
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds
good thing I have a Maggotkin army.
It's a good thing you have an entire Maggotkin army. You also have this army, the Deepkin.
Woo! You! Well, on one hand, they didn't really change the Deepkin very much, which is kind of good, actually. I think the tide. They looked at the tide and they said, "Well, this just kind of really does work really well." Yeah. So I think maybe they're gonna get rid of all the flippy tide stuff. Maybe I'm not. I'm just kind of
elaborate
on that.
On the reverse tide.
Well, the tide caster doesn't do any of that stuff anymore. So that's one hint that might be the case.
So basically, the tide was every turn is a different thing.
Yeah.
And the big one was on turn 3. What did you get? You to run in charge or strike first or something?
So turn 3 was ASF across the whole army.
Across the army, yeah. Strikes first. Yeah.
And the only complicated part I'd say about the tide mechanic was that like every Deepkin player broke the tide mechanic. Like no one was just playing the tide. Everyone would be like, okay, this faction lets me do this turn and this turn, or this character lets me flip the tide, and then I'm also flipping turns around, and it was just a really.
It was what's the point? Yeah.
I actually had to bring a little table for my opponent when I was playing it at Decticon and being like, I'm not cheating. I swear.
Yeah.
Let's walk through it.
Yeah. So
it does seem so. Deepkin will benefit a ton from the damage curve dropping a little bit because that was one of the problems they had in third, is they just couldn't keep up with the damage curve. And man,
they're a cavalry army, right? Like
they're a cavalry army,
like a charge in.
There seems to be a lot of the typical like hit and run stuff. There's ways to avoid taking damage when you run and retreat and charge stuff, which is always good. They've just made the deploy off the table thing part of the what the army does now, so you can stay in the Ether Sea and then deploy later, which is cool because that was always attached to a character, but everyone just took the character.
Yeah.
So it's like I think they're just like, look, this is in every army. Like let's just make it a faction thing.
Dish in his hand.
This guy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It looks like sharks are going to be nasty. They have like a lot of anti-monster stuff, and then the gun can be anti-cav or anti-monster, which is neat. And then so far from what I've seen, up for best war scroll in AOS so far, the eels with the sword cav eels, the Ishlin Guard, look extremely strong. They have some boosted stats on their attacks. They have anti-infantry, which they'll be Ren 2 against infantry.
Yeah, that's good.
The eels still hit like a truck, and they have a ward save if they charge. And they reduce the attack of the unit they're fighting by 1. Yeah. Which is probably the lamest rule in the entire game.
-1 attack is...
It's so lame.
You get less dice.
You just put a pillow over
it's better than -1 to hit? Just you get to roll less dice.
You just roll way less dice. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Next time I have cities. This is another army I play. They didn't see a lot. I didn't expect a lot because it's one of those like recent books, so they probably just did a lot of copy pasta or whatever. Yeah. Obviously the one thing I did notice is like, because everything's like more simplified and these are like whatever you want to call them, index factions, they're going to be missing. There wasn't a table of like cities to pick. They just kind of baked in some rules. So like, for example, the cavalry unit just has the what do you call it, the Excelsior or whatever the city was, Excelsis City thing baked in, which is like they just do 4+ mortals for each guy kind of thing.
Do the Cav just do that now?
They just do that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And then they still have like, they just distilled to 4 simple orders that affect all the units. So every, so that was like extra move, an extra round of combat I think they had, if I remember. I can't remember them all exactly. It's been a few days, but long story short, instead of having like ones that were only for elves or only for dwarves, they just have 4 generic ones, and then they have a secondary ability that can benefit a dwarf or an elf or humans or whatever. Okay. So it's, just kind of what it always was, and then they're trying to keep that castle information thing going with having the all the guys with that keyword. But they didn't really reveal a lot of war scrolls to help you there. Like they didn't show what the Warforger does. Sounds like they want you to, they're trying to incentivize you to take the ogre with the guy on top, the Warhulk or whatever he's called. They want you to he targets something and then you can have your gunners just get +1 hit.
He actually spots now.
He spots things.
You're he kind of like looks like he would be doing it.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. It's really hard to judge this army because a lot of made them good or what gave them power was every unit had like a unique ability. So I don't know, without seeing those, it's a bit tough to really judge.
That's
like,
the thing, right?
You know, like I don't like, for example, Zenestra was a popular choice because of her prayers. You know, have they remained the same? Have they changed? They haven't revealed her. Looks like they've tried to make Talia more impactful. She dispenses extra orders and heals guys. But again, depends on how many points she is. Stuff like that. So wait and see. It's neither bad nor great. It's just is. Fyreslayers. Yeah, I don't know a ton about them other than they have. I also don't care, to be honest.
Ooh.
Sorry, Fyreslayers.
You really shot 1.5 people in the chest there.
I know, that's why I said it, yeah.
I really side note, I really hope they get more love.
This is a faction that just,
they just need some love, man.
It's
a couple more kits that aren't just a dwarf or whatever, little different size things and some cavalry, maybe a couple more monsters, like some fire golems or something, man. There's so many cool things they could do.
It's hard to, like, I mean, you saw Flesh Eater Courts finally graduate from the same pit of, like, we have 3 things in our army or something, or maybe 4 things, you know, and then maybe there's 6 of variations of the same character, and you're like, how am I supposed to build a diverse army out of this? So, anyway, they seem to have kept their, like, Urgold thing. It's like once per game, big abilities, you know, you can have, like, your whole army can, like, strike first or once a turn, once a game, things like that. So, not very exciting, but we'll see. Feck, I think, also remains kind of similar. They have
makes sense since they're like an end of edition.
Their noble deeds continues to be a thing. I'm not going to go too much in there because I honestly didn't see a lot different. Ogres. Again, it was my only notes are they do impact hits, which I think they did before.
Yeah, they did impact hits.
And they have some gimmick with a blizzard spell where they can like buff a terrain piece, and then if they're near it, they get like 3+ ward saves or something crazy like that. So this is, I think they're keeping their cards a little close to the chest on that one too, because they're supposed to be a faction that gets like quite a bit of a redo.
I feel like they're definitely, there's a lot of rumors going around like that. That's an army that could get like the full Slaves to Darkness or Soulblight Lords treatment.
Yeah. I'm zooming through a couple of these because there wasn't a lot. Disciples, another army I play or played. I haven't played in a while. My real notes there are Kairos can pick 2 battle tactics. So in match play, that's kind of, and it's not just pick 2, it's pick 2 and like it's like whatever you, so like you can score both or one and then still pick the other one later. Like it's
Disciples, they always have like
this is really
insane
good
rules.
This is such a great rule,
and they always seem to find a way to make one of their Lord of Change models like bananas again.
I almost feel like so there's this guy, you may or may not know him at all. I mean, Chris knows who he is. I don't know you viewers. There's this gentleman named Caleb Walters who's basically like the best Age of Sigmar player maybe in the world or something, or at least in the United States. This guy wins all the time, and he plays just Tzeentch. He's played Tzeentch
since the first edition. He's
been
playing.
This is like a tailor-made guy for rule for this
that's
guy.
when I get upset when I see that. I'm like, he doesn't need 2 battle tactics. Stop it.
I'll let you cover here the Kharadrons. You remember how they work? Sorry.
Well, yeah. So they actually changed them quite a bit, actually, which is kind of cool. So I think they're giving they hear people and they say, okay, one of the big things people hate is the sort of like the hiding in ships, the dropping down and getting close and then deploying and attacking. Like, so it seems like units are going to basically be like ferried along with the ship, deployed on the table.
That's right.
They can like latch on and like basically move around with it.
You have a ship and guys around it.
Yeah.
And then you pick up the ship, put it down, and then you take those guys and put it down next to it.
You move it around.
So there's they're not like in the ship.
Yeah.
Where you'd have to like our buddy John would have, he would have all these little magnetic boards, like whiteboards, and he would like section, and he would write down what's in each ship, and he had to have that on the side of the table, both for himself and for his opponents.
Yeah, and it's kind of
just silly.
Anytime models are off the table, but they're on the table, it's just like you get the same problem with like transports in 40k. You're like, what the hell's in that rhino?
What is in there?
Like, I think it just makes for a visually.
But it was even more weird in this game because just because you're in the ship, you were still fully targetable. It wasn't like in 40k. It's like you could just say this is in the ship in the land raider, but like you can't attack those guys.
That's right. Yeah.
But here you can.
Anyway,
so that's gone, which is so So that's kind of the big.
Yeah, I think there's like generally going to be less ways for them to kind of like manipulate their like pick up, drop down, like exploitative movement sort of shenanigans.
They did have, if I remember now, they do have like, are they like special maneuvers or whatever? I think they can like, the ship can like, it's got like an assault thing. Like it can like charge and then and then the guys pop modes or whatever. And then the guys also explode.
Like stormtrooper move or whatever. They charge and then the guys inside charge as well.
Cool.
Yeah, neat.
Nighthaunt, not I don't know. Sounds like they've cleaned up their buffs. I think you just can. I forget. Instead of it being like, I think you just pick. It's like it's a bit like the OBR thing. I think you just pick these every phase. You just pick these buffs to turn on, rather than being it like a baked-in condition that only triggers when at the right time. Here it's just like, okay, now you can get your whatever it is, extra
switch it around,
extra whatever's. Yeah, was. Our Nighthaunt friend was like, he liked it. He thought it was just like less bookkeeping, just kind of more straightforward. So
yeah, like you'll notice like some of these factions like didn't change a whole ton.
Not a lot, yeah.
It's just like minor tweaks and just kind of simplifying across the board. That's the thing is like the biggest change you're going to notice is on the War Scrolls when like they just completely clean up.
Yeah.
How many things you need to look at on a War Scroll.
Yeah. So we got a couple left here to kind of round out what's so far been revealed. There's a few that haven't been, I guess. What else? Orcs and...
There's 8 more to go.
Is there 8 more to go?
Yeah, dog.
Oh, you're right. Stormcast. Yeah. What's changed there?
Nothing. I don't know. Like
they can teleport.
Yeah, like
they can.
I didn't see that yet. So that's always. But I mean, that's always could be buried on a model War Scroll. Right?
That's true.
But it's so they get the Deep Strike thing still, which is awesome. It's very Stormcast Eternals, like the deploy in the sky, and then deploy later in the game thing.
Sounds like they just did the thing where they just made some War Scrolls just really good.
I was a little confused reading it. It looked to me like the faction bonuses you're picking are going to give you like a powerful once per game effect and another thing. Like there's like 2 things attached to each one.
Got it.
But they didn't show too many off, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah. All we can get.
All the units seem to be kind of getting rounded up to like 3+ save minimum.
Yeah.
So which is very really good. So they're going to be really elite.
Really elite. Yeah.
And I mean they showed off like the Annihilators, but they like I don't know why they showed that War Scroll because they basically do exactly the same thing as they did last edition, except I guess they got the units. It's kind of interesting. Like they're almost like, and maybe this is like a hint at like what some of the other units will get, but like they have shields. And the shields don't actually change their armor save; they give them an ability, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, like charge.
So, like the non-shielded guys might have like a combat ability,
right?
And the shielded guys have like you roll and then maybe you give strike last to your opponent.
Oh, I see.
So like these debuff. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Like and your unit kind of like has its stats and they're pretty simple, and then it just does like one interesting thing.
Yeah, I mean, Stormcast are always the faction of they're supposed to be the starter box faction. They're the most like. I don't know, iconic Sigmar faction. Everyone's owned some.
Yeah.
So they tend to be an army that is like kind of easier to pilot. Lots of baked-in rules. Mm-hmm. You don't have to overthink it. You just bring. There's always. Oh, there's our phone. Yeah. I was wondering when that was going to happen. Yeah.
Video's too long.
Video is too long. That's when we made the phone ring. Anyway, so I think what you're going to expect is just a solid. If you're jumping into the game or jumping back into the game, perfect army. They're not going to be bad. They're probably not going to. Yeah, I think they're probably going to start pretty strong based on these ideas. Some of the stock War Scroll, the way they're written and their stats and attacks. And we haven't even gotten.
Well, I mean, like they showed you Nostra and the dragon off, and like I'm like, wow, they
just do damage.
Heroes do damage now, man. Yeah. Like they have a lot of damage.
It's a good old safe choice, right? Yeah. Skaven sounds also a lot of like what we're used to. They've got the knotholes and the tunnels, so there's always a lot of like popping in and popping out, deploying off the table, showing up all over the table. Knotholes are these terrain. They have 3 pieces that you can deploy, like form this triangle across the entire table, and then you can just jump into this one and pop out of that one.
I didn't see that. Did you see that? I saw that they could come out of the holes.
I don't know about popping back in. Yeah, I don't know about that.
I don't know if they got rid of that. But they did get a really cool new ability.
They did.
The only faction that I can see that gets to move in their opponent's turn.
They do have a free in your opponent's hero phase. They can just move a unit.